This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
Right. Hi, everybody. This is the joint meeting of the Affordable Housing Partnership and the Rent Study Committee. It's 6:03 p.m. Does anyone want to take notes?
I will take some notes.
Okay. I mean, I always take some of them, and it's recorded, so we can always go back and look at them.
That's really what I mean. I'm happy to go back and take another
and look at it again. Yeah. Okay.
I always. Yeah.
Okay. I did put public speak on the agenda because sometimes people come and want to talk to us. Is there anybody here for public speak? I don't see anybody. All right. So I thought it would be helpful to go around and introduce ourselves since we don't all know each other. I'll go first. You all know me. I'm Jana Tatro. I am the chair of the Affordable and Fair Housing Partnership and a member of the Rent Study Committee. That's fine.
I am Shira. I'm a member of the Fair and Affordable Housing Partnership. About 5 years or something, COVID time.
Weisman. I'm a new member of the Affordable Fair Housing Partnership, and I am also a co-founder of the Easthampton City Hall.
I am Carolyn Cushing. I'm on the Rent Study Committee for however long we've been going. Once.
Kevin Perrier from Norwich Properties, part of the Rent Study Committee.
Donna Chappello, Rent Study Committee and Fair Housing Partnership.
I am Jeremiah McQuaid, City Councilor at Large. I'm on the Rent Study Committee and currently still on the Housing Partnership, but that will probably change.
Online folks, do you want to introduce yourselves? David, go ahead.
Hi, David Boyle, AZ Properties, member of the Rent Study Committee.
Hi, everyone. It's Allison. I'm the planning director for the city.
Hi, folks. I'm Jackie Brusso Pereira. I've been on the Easthampton Affordable and Fair Housing Partnership since before it was called that, so for a very long time.
Great. Thanks, everybody. So we're here to talk about the zoning recommendations that the partnership has put forward to City Council and sort of go over to provide a brief overview of what we've been working on, and then really it's to hear feedback from the Rent Study Committee members about some of our proposals. Some of them sections.
First four bullets.
The first four bullets are moved forward from City Council and are we have a public hearing before the planning board next Tuesday. But the remaining sections have not moved forward and are, I mean, we're open to hearing feedback on all of them, but the remaining portions are still ones that we have opportunity to amend or update or include an appendix because we haven't moved those quite forward through City Council yet. And I'm going to lead on Kayam to do a little bit of an overview.
Yeah. So like Jana said, the first half of the zoning recommendations was mainly language changes. So updating things to better fit with fair housing and state law. We included, or we changed our definition of family to be a little bit more inclusive. And then we also worked to clarify the term community character throughout the zoning to establish some like clear subjective or objective criteria that is less
subjective.
Yeah, yeah, it's less subjective and less arbitrary, and could be used to like exclude people. And then we also addressed parking minimums, which previously the multifamily parking minimum was way higher than we thought was necessary. So we lowered it down to what was considered the standard for the multifamily housing or affordable multifamily housing. And then what we still have left is, I think, some of the more complex and time consuming, and we sort of expected this, the land use considerations, the mixed use potential, and then also looking into our dimensional regulations. So the report, and I'm just giving an overview. The actual report has a lot more detail and like gives detailed justification and rationale for all of the changes that we want to make, or that we're proposing. But just an overview is increasing flexibility of residential land use by permitting duplex construction and conversion by right in all residential zones, applying the same dimensional requirements as single family uses, because currently duplexes are required to have more lot size than single family homes. And then we also want to remove the 18 unit multifamily housing structures, which a good example of how this is causing challenges in the community is like the Sierra Vista project, which all of their buildings are exactly 18 units because that's the most that they could build. But if this cap weren't in place, we could potentially see projects that are a little bit more creative and built denser.
So would there be a higher cap or no cap?
I think we're
proposing no cap because there's other dimensional requirements that would limit the height of the building, or the size of the building, and
The
we,
footprint?
yeah.
Just tons of setback requirements.
Yeah, we have height limits, we have setback requirements, we have floor area maximums. So there's like a lot.
Okay.
And I'd be curious what Kevin and David think about it, but we've heard from other developers that 18 units is a really arbitrary number. It makes the elevator, putting in an elevator more expensive. You know, we've heard feedback that it could have been 24 or 26 or, so that, I think we're just suggesting eliminating all the other
I think for
requirements.
most
Also a
parts.
challenge for affordable housing tax
Yeah.
credits.
Right, the 18 units is too
Because
small.
You just need more in order to be cost effective.
Yeah.
Which is why I think he went with 3 buildings so that he could be eligible for more funding at Sierra Vista. I mean, so that there would be enough units to qualify for certain funding sources. But we could have that in 1 building.
Or, yeah, David and Kevin, you wanted to weigh in?
Well, I like the idea of a no cap. My brothers and I are building across from the present library has 24 units, and that was the building that actually created a building cap in 1996 of 6 units. I put forward a zoning amendment to make it to 18 units, but there should be no cap because green space and stormwater management defines how many units you can put on a lot. And if you can go up another story, you know, and be reasonable, we're not talking skyscrapers, but create more green space or more drainage, you know, you gain that way, and you gain maybe 5 or 6 units.
All right, sorry, I cut you off.
Oh, no, I mean, I feel like it makes more sense for me to go through it as we read through it
Okay.
rather than me do it all at once.
Okay.
No, they pretty much hit it on the head. I had yet to see a parcel that was, the number of units was dictated by necessarily a cap, except for this year. It's usually open space, acreage is what's determining it. If you want to increase the density, obviously reduce, you know, those requirements. But I think that, and the other piece that I think you've touched on is the number of buildings. To me, because I don't understand the logic behind the cap of a number of buildings per parcel. You get some of these larger parcels that seems like that should be eliminated as long as you're within the open space requirement. Then you know, certain parcels are really just cosmetically cost effective, whatever the multitude of reasons to not cap it to. I think it's 8 or 9 offhand right now per parcel.
8 or 9 buildings per parcel.
Mhm.
And how is parcel defined? Just.
One lot, you know, for example, the Pleasant Street project we're doing, we were limited by that number. You can only have so many, so you end up making larger buildings rather than something that might be a little bit more attractive by breaking them up into clusters or something along those lines, or even, you know, add more duplexes because you keep it a little bit more affordable. You're eliminating fire protection, things like that to it. That comes off the table when you cap the number of buildings, and kind of arbitrarily because the number of units didn't necessarily change.
So we don't have that in our recommendations, the parcels. We do?
No, we don't.
We don't.
So, yeah.
So that's, I mean, that's something that we could consider adding. We just have the units per building. So that's a good point about.
No, and I think that they're closely related.
Yeah.
So if we can like find sort of things that we can tie on suggestions to
Yeah.
and just like bring it up to the planning board and be like, we would also like to do this.
Yeah.
think that would be good.
Okay.
All right. I think the next piece is the mixed use and residential zones. So to increase walkability, increase sort of the economic vibrancy of different neighborhoods, we've suggested permitting small retail and service uses like arts and shops, photography studios, small markets in all residential zones, subject to special permit approval. So this would be, they would have to go before the zoning board and submit that they're, compliance with all of the other regulations that they would, like the Aquifer Protection Overlay District and the different zoning regulations that we have in place. But that was a proposal that we have on there. And then also, I think the second bullet, I already covered, but convenience markets, small food and beverage establishments, and limited floor area supermarkets in the urban and suburban residential zones. So that would be currently what's between R5, R10, and R35, I'm pretty sure. So yeah, I think that there's definitely going to be pushback on this, and there already has been pushback specifically like in the R40 from the Aquifer Protection District. They're concerned about even residential use over the aquifer, so they're definitely not interested in adding additional use or other uses like industrial or commercial. But I definitely think in some other neighborhoods in the city, it might be viable.
Is there thoughts of breaking this into smaller, more palatable pieces to bring forward?
Yeah, I mean, that's sort of the logic, but with like taking the first half and just sort of sending that. And like, we know, I don't want to get ahead of my skis because I could talk about this and we could just go on a tangent, but we're, the Aquifer Committee and the Affordable Housing Partnership have been meeting to talk about sort of the concerns that they have and what more information we need to get before they feel comfortable supporting us. So we're learning about the aquifer and potentially going to get a study done to look at like where the clay layer is and all that stuff. So I definitely think that there's going to be some work to be done splitting this out into smaller pieces. Because I mean, I don't imagine that the planning board's going to make a decision about even the first 4
On Tuesday?
on Tuesday. I think it's probably going to be like 3 meetings for just that.
Probably. And the stuff with the aquifer, we now think we need a study and then we need money, and we learned a whole lot about recharge and lots of interesting things a couple weeks ago from them. So yes, we could end up with something else that we want to move forward from here that doesn't have to impact that. But yes, it's we had kind of made a decision a few years ago when we started this that we were going to go big or go home. And so we kind of knew we weren't going to get everything we wanted, but we decided, let's just see what happens. And so 2 years later, we're still in that process.
We're waiting to see.
Yes,
what's
gonna
Spaghetti is not sticking to the wall.
yeah. I mean, so far it's went through ordinance fairly smoothly. We'll see what happens at planning board. I don't know. But yeah. But yeah, any comments or questions about the mixed use part?
Is that one question I do have about that? I know I was on the committee, but I was new at the time that was all happening. Is that just for new construction, or is that for any residential areas?
So this would be zoned like a use restriction. So it would be any existing building.
So if you wanted to turn your house, your garage into
Salon.
an art studio,
Yeah.
Or a bakery?
then then you have to get the health department involved.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah.
It's related to people coming, right?
Yes.
Like if you just had your
It-
own art
oh, it-
studio.
No,
Right,
where you're
that would-
selling your art.
Right.
So is the concern about traffic patterns and parking and all of that?
Yeah. I mean, I think that there's 2 ways to answer that question. There's like the logic in our zoning and like the broader like zoning theory, which is just historically it's been best practice to separate uses. Like neighborhoods are here, commercial stuff is here, industrial stuff is there.
Yeah, but we know that's not really the ideal
Yeah.
setup.
And there are some good reasons, like there
Yeah.
are some deleterious uses, like a butcher shop could be dumping a bunch of bloody water
Yeah,
into our
health
aquifer.
department.
We wouldn't love that, but like,
Well, and also an artist could be using for toxic materials.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So I think there's good reasons to separate some uses, but if we can find a balance of like, you know, would it be so bad to have like a little bodega or convenience market that,
I want to sell my knitting.
yeah.
Okay.
Well, I mean, and I think that we already have, I think that we already have allowances for like what's considered a minor home occupation currently. Like if the primary use of your dwelling is residential and you're just creating like you work from home and you have an art studio or you want to sell your knitting, but it's when the use changes to commercial that it becomes a problem. And you could correct me if I'm wrong, but
Yeah.
So just to be clear, if you live in Easthampton and you're in your own home and this change goes through, you would go and you would get a permit. You'd say, this is what I want to do in my home. Or I want to put up an ADU that's going to be an art studio or a pottery studio or whatever, and seek permission to be able to do that. But then also anyone who was a developer, for example, could include in the residential complexes and commercial ventures.
potentially, yeah.
I got it.
And
Is there thought of that being done in lifts as well? I know you guys put in years of work, so I don't want to come in as a,
No, we like the
I'm
feedback.
just curious. I think that's a hard sell. I've seen you try to do the simplest of things and it's a very not in my backyard, which is everybody's immediate reaction that you may have that pushed very hard. You go to the plains and, people are going to envision everybody selling their pottery to doing their taxes to this one's got a bakery and where do you park? And, it changes the flavor of what would be a neighborhood versus perhaps, multifamily by right is, they're a duplex by right, maybe an easier first pass to that, a little more palatable. I'm just wondering if there's any thought of let's an inch at a time and get little wins that actually are impactful to, just from a rent committee side, when we're talking about housing as a problem, it seems like that may be an easier pill to swallow for folks, and have a pretty immediate impact within 18 months. You could see changes happen.
Yeah, no, and I definitely agree with what you're saying. Like, I think that that's sort of why we structured it in the way that we did. We wanted to have that sort of be its own piece, because I do think there's going to be a lot more pushback on this kind of thing than like telling people, hey, we want you to be able to convert your home to a duplex.
Yeah, I read through it like 3 times and there was some great stuff. You're like, this is very common sense. Why isn't it like this now? And those other things like, oh, that's...
Yeah, and
that's probably not going to
We
work
did
well.
We did also aim for the stars.
Yeah,
right.
right.
It was suggested that we aimed for the stars, and we
Totally.
did not take
I
that lightly.
The next steps as far as moving it forward is it?
Well, you have to have priorities, right?
But also, what kind of vision does it fit within? Like, I heard you say walkable cities. Like,
Yeah, and
we
that's-
want Easthampton, every neighborhood to be walkable. You don't have to drive to the supermarket for a gallon of milk. Maybe there's somewhere
I
local.
mean, personally, I live in the plains and all of my neighbors are like in their 70s and 80s. And I don't see them, and I don't love the idea of thinking about them driving to Stop and Shop or Big Y, like having to take that scary left turn off of Coleman Road. Like, I don't love that. And I don't love, the isolation that can bring when people stop being able to use their car. So like, I think that there's, like, in my head, it is very like pie in the sky, but it's like, having people walk to a neighborhood store and seeing their neighbors more often and being more engaged in their community, immediate community, rather than like having to drive to a commercial area or, and I know that like it is very idealistic, but I don't think that it's.
No, I believe me, I hear you. I mean, I've been here in the city long enough to remember when Tritco's was here and there was little, stores, and there was a store out in the plains that, by where the dentist is. I mean, I remember that and all that. Just unfortunately wasn't workable business models either. That's
Yeah.
the problem too. So yes, I agree. Perhaps if it's in your home, it's a different story. If you could live there, it's different than having a freestanding, business. So there's certainly an upside to it. Like I said, I just think that
Hard sell.
might be a harder sell.
Yeah.
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 And I mean, the idea could be shaped into something that is a little bit less overtly like commercial. Like if we're talking about making it more of an accessory to what's already existing there. Like I've heard the idea of accessory commercial unit, which is like allowing greater minor and major home occupation allowance than what we currently do. So letting people from the public show up and like not on appointment basis, or like there's a bunch of specifics in there that are restrictions to home occupations versus what becomes commercial. But if we like shifted that line a little bit, that might be a compromise.
Just set an image of a food truck. Like, does that fall in that category?
I don't.
Or is that something like if just to have it at your house? Like, so you're making the food in the food truck, then would it be an ADU?
Where can you have food trucks permitted? Just downtown?
Food trucks are sensitive. I just want to throw out there because they can't have a commissary. You can't be putting your wastewater in the municipal water system. So not a great example. I would steer away from that one.
Okay.
Okay, we'll use that as an example.
Well, but to comment on what Kyle was talking about, like I lived in JP and been there for a lot of years, and there was this little store that opened. It was kind of like a little bodega. They had a counter where you could make sandwiches. You could stop by to get your coffee. They had a few shelves and a cooler, and you could go in and you could get like spaghetti and spaghetti sauce and some meat and a fresh pepper to like make supper. And over time, a couple of chairs came in, there was a little table, some more stuff came on the shelves, and it became like this was a place where you went and you saw your neighbors and you chatted with them, you bought your coffee, you tipped the barista, and if on your way home, if you needed some milk, you would stop and pick up the milk when you got off the train and, walk it to your apartment or your house. So I think what you're envisioning is a great, it's a great vision. It does bring people together, and it does help to create a sense of community amongst you and your neighbors.
And there may be barriers to that existing, like Kevin said, like it might not be a workable business model anymore. But like I guess in my mind, I just don't want our zoning to be the reason why it can't exist. Because that's something we can change. Like that's a decision that we were making.
And I live right downtown. I just get to go to Biggie's. It's great.
Yeah, I'm very jealous.
It's a good thing. Yeah, I know.
That's a good thing. Well, that also brings up the issue of like public transportation.
Yeah.
Because if your neighbors in the Plains had something to get on to go to the store, that would be great. But that's not zoning.
Right. David, you had your hand up?
Well, yeah, just in general, I think it's a great idea. Up into the 1930s or so, there was actually in Easthampton 14 cash markets, which is a predecessor to convenience stores. There was even one on Garfield Ave. And the reason why there were so many is refrigeration wasn't common yet, so people needed to be in walking distance of meat. That's one reason why we had Tricos, Stazes, and stuff. So I think it's a great idea, walkable and all. But as far as food, though, I think you're going to run into other hurdles, basically health code hurdles and scale hurdles. So I think it's going to be more like service businesses, artists, and maybe some professional businesses that a lawyer on the side of his house or something. But as far as food, I don't think you're going to see that. But I agree with Kayam that you don't need to worry about that if you have the possibility, and if they can make it work, they can make it work.
Yeah. And I also think like an important thing to mention is that we're proposing that it happen by special permit approval. So that would be notifying all the abutters, and it would be an uphill battle. And they would have to meet all the strict regulations in our zoning otherwise. So it would give neighbors the chance to like input their concerns and right.
All right, I'm gonna move us on.
Yeah,
To the biggest one, right?
yeah. And since you have the
Yeah,
thing,
do you
and I
wanna
see the table.
Yeah.
Just turn on myself. It's been so long at this point.
But you spend so much time with it.
So the last piece is, I think, sort of the biggest, like Jenna said, is to modify our table of area regulations to simplify the existing zoning scheme down to 3 zones rather than the existing 6. This is sort of based on the fact that a lot of the lots in our current zones are pre-existing non-conforming. They were built and subdivided when our zoning required much lower lot area minimums. So we have a wild statistic in here is for the R40 district. That's like over 88% of our lots in that district are below the requirement, and like over 60% are under half of the requirement. I mean, there are good reasons, like there are reasons for that regarding the aquifer, or at least that was the justification for it. But like in the report, we have like all these histograms that just show like there are many lots that don't fit the requirement, which is the dotted line. And if those lots wanted to modify, if they wanted to put on an addition, if they wanted to build a front porch, they would have to get a zoning, they would have to go to the zoning board of appeals to change that. And our sort of logic was, let's both simplify the scheme, but also let's try to move things back to where they were when these neighborhoods were built, because these are neighborhoods that we value. Like we're thinking of some of our highly desirable neighborhoods where we have like all these beautiful Victorian houses built 10 feet apart from each other, but that's all illegal now because of setbacks and lot area minimums. So yeah, that's sort of the logic behind it. And then the proposal is sort of just a placeholder in terms of what the actual area regulations would be. Like I don't feel comfortable, me and Ben both didn't feel comfortable setting like here's what the frontage should be, but we are requesting that the planning board seriously look at this and reduce it as much as they feel comfortable. And then also, like I mentioned, the broader, like simplifying things down into the 3 major zones. So collapsing R5 and R10 into R urban, collapsing R15, 35, and 40 into suburban, and R80 would stay as it is, but it would be renamed to R rural. And then this is the table.
Was there any thought that, Alice was looking at, the name escapes me, but there's several different paths forward for developments in Easthampton that are a little bit more dense. So it escapes me at the time, but for example, like Fox Run is one of them, where you basically take it and a certain percentage of land is turned over to preservation. Is there any thought that seems to be kind of a low hanging fruit to allow folks that abut that to add on to it? For example, if you have a development like that and you have 6 acres next door, rather than being able to tie into that and continue with the same size lots, you can't. So now your lot that your neighbor may be on 0.3 of an acre, you now need, 1.3 or an acre there. Seems like it might be worth exploring being able to continue some continuity to already approved developments on abutting properties. There's quite a few examples of areas that would assist with some density in Easthampton. I don't know if that makes sense. Like, for example,
it partially makes sense. I would want to hear
well,
more.
for example, I mean, I only know because we were involved in one, but we did some spec homes off of Fox Run and Hendricks. So that Fox Run in particular, and it's not just that one, there's several others. That community was done under that program, where so you take 20 acres, you're turning 10 of them into preservation. That now allows you to have a much more dense lot. Those lots are like a third of an acre lot. Well, we're right up against there. Could have easily continued with that same percentage and said, I will turn in 50% of the land also to preservation. Let us keep the 0.3 acre lots. basically same houses. You would have got one more unit on it, and you would have preserved some land, and it would have kept continuity of the look. Instead, you go down Fox now and you have tight lot, and then 2 1-acre lots, actually 3 1-acre lots. Doesn't fit in, looks kind of silly, and you missed out on an additional housing unit because of it.
Joanna or Allison, do you know what that program was? Just not familiar.
It's still there. It's still a viable path, yeah.
Yeah, so it's probably the open space residential development. This is probably a good chance for me to say that I am working on a grant application to do a housing production plan. And as part of that, I want to rewrite our open space residential development regulations because they're a mess and no one uses them anymore because there are other paths forward that are easier permitting wise and probably equally as desirable from a developer standpoint for what the market demands. We're seeing a lot of them on Loudville Road, for example, where they're falling under the multifamily development standards, but really sort of are more like single family condos. So it's more like a subdivision with sprawl. So anyways, I think encouraging people in the direction of the open space development where it is clustered, denser, while protecting habitats and landscapes is definitely a good idea.
That's great. I didn't know about that, so that's really helpful.
Mhm.
Where's Fox?
What is the street?
That's what you're trying to read.
That's what I thought.
So
That's Fox.
Was it like in the last like 10, 15 years? Was it new like 15 years ago?
it's newer. Yeah, they're newer.
Okay.
It's kind of obvious because it is really lovely.
Right in.
You can tell
Out
it's
of
new.
nowhere, like
Yeah.
you take a
Well,
right and you're
You
like,
could
oh.
just tell that it's a newer development.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay.
Yeah, no, that sounds like an interesting idea, and I think the way you phrased it makes a ton of sense. Like if you're instead of having to like play games with subdividing lots to make sure that you're putting the right amount of acreage or whatever, it just makes sense if you could do it on multiple projects and you're preserving the same amount of land.
Give this continuity.
Yeah.
That's just something.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
For the little open land that we have left.
Well, that's the thing, right? Easthampton doesn't have a lot of land left. And so a lot of this is like, how do we use what we have left? And, part of our thinking, I live on Pomeroy Street in one of the newer houses, which looks nothing like the street across the street from me. All of those houses are on much smaller lots. And if that side of Pomeroy Street could have built smaller houses on smaller lots, we would have more houses. And they might be smaller, and they might be less expensive. But instead, we now have this huge row of houses that are all built on 1-acre lots that are larger, because that's what, if you're going to build a 1-acre lot, you're going to build a bigger house. And they've been progressively more and more expensive as the years have gone on. But we probably could have had twice as many houses.
The open space, I think, is a big problem as well. You need a massive parcel now to do any type of density, unless it's affordable. But then you still need a massive parcel.
Yeah.
I think the Pleasant Street project, you look at it, what we're developing, it has some density that is only allowed because there's another 8 acres of completely unusable land down the cliff that wasn't there. That same parcel couldn't be developed in that manner, even though it doesn't change the look whatsoever. The land on Glendale is another example. It's been for sale forever. It's a crazy amount, but that little parcel could get 6 units there. It's only because there's another 10, 11 acres that's floodplain, but part of it, you'll never see that. It doesn't matter. It's a math equation. That density. Otherwise, that's going to be a single family, probably.
All right. Well, I want to be cognizant of time because it's almost 6:40.
Well, you all can keep meeting. I just would like to leave so that I can see the game. If there's any other comments, David, I don't know if you have any other comments.
No, I mean, everything that's been said is, I think is great. I like what Kevin brought up because, when we look at, as a developer, but even when I used to work a lot with Stuart, when we looked at parcels, we kind of stopped at the parcel for various reasons. And, if, basically because of ownership, but, ownership shouldn't really ownership shouldn't necessarily dictate the landscape or the community feel. If you have an opportunity to add a lot, but keep the same, a spirit of open space, I think that's, it might be easier said than done, but I think that's a great idea. Along those lines, I brought it up a couple of times. I've been working with someone. I would like to see maybe in highway business, more residential on the first floor. Maybe, in current existing businesses, because with COVID, residential real estate has gone up, straight up, but office space is not gone straight down, but is decreasing, and it's going to get and as AI comes on, I'm seeing more and more commercial reports that office space and commercial space is going to be less desirable. So, if we have space that's already built upon, we got to think of all the little creative ways of adding residential.
Mhm. And David, that was a proposal before, right? And it sort of died. It never went anywhere to have first floor residential.
Yeah, Jeff Bagg was behind it. His thought was that if a parcel had more than one commercial building, he would be very open to doing that. But I know he talked about it before the planning board, but it kind of just went away. They got busy, I think, with Sierra Vista, and it just didn't happen.
Well, I will add that I brought this up at my last Chapa Housing Leadership Academy cohort meeting, and it was something that was identified by the staff there that would be really good to pursue, just as like an easy win to add additional housing units. And I guess it's one of the things that they're encouraging communities to do as a small zoning change across the state. So,
Well, I think
that would be
having,
just looking at any commercial spaces and saying, well, we'll turn them into residential.
well,
properties.
specifically in the highway business district, the allowed use doesn't let you put residences on the first floor. So this would change that and allow it.
and I think at the last time we talked about this, you had a couple examples, like the Hurry Scurry building and the up
That's a
here,
terrible place to have commercial on the first floor.
and up here where they have the building.
Yeah, even that.
Yeah.
So if I may, I focused on economic development when I was a student, and it is definitely frowned upon to allow residential on the first floor in a downtown area. It maintaining some commercial zoned area, it's just important for the long-term viability of like the tax base and the stability of the tax base. And I would have concerns about it unless it was Jeff, it sounds like he maybe had an idea of if it's more than one building and the front has commercial on the first floor, but behind it doesn't, like that's okay. But there are reasons to preserve the commercial element.
Well, with Jeff and the EDIC, we had two ideas. One was with the highway business zone, but in a downtown zone, the idea was that the front half, or I think maybe even 60% of the front of the first floor front had to be commercial. And it was limited to one unit downstairs. So, echoing what Allison said, it's pretty much, on Cottage Street at one time during the 70s, we had 4 apartments in a row that texture 111 siding on the sidewalk. They were old commercial units. And, your front door, your porch, your front yard is the sidewalk. And we have one left, and, we got rid of those. So I wouldn't want to see us go back to those. But I think the highway business is a different opportunity. Like, for instance, the 3 buildings across the street from Nikki D's and Abishan's, there's 12 apartments in those 3 buildings. And the commercial space could easily have 6 apartments, 2 in each building, with not much modifications, and people driving by wouldn't notice the difference.
Thank you. That's good feedback. Thank you.
And I mean, the only other thing that I wanted to touch on in this meeting was just, I feel like we're at this point where housing partnership is shepherding through the second half of the zoning. I don't know if you guys are itching for a new project or like figuring out, but like, I think it would
You
just
said
be.
you guys, because you're talking.
Right, right. What is this?
You guys, like, what?
Where are your feet, sir? On what side of this door?
It's okay. I'm with you. I know. We're gonna lose you. It's all right.
Yeah, just too many meetings.
I know. Yeah.
But
No one's
I guess
covered yet.
I wanted to like touch on how these groups could support each other and not like duplicate work and
Yeah.
like, I guess sort of, now that we've opened the lines of communication and everyone knows each other, I think that we can like feel more comfortable collaborating and reaching out to each other about specific things. But I know that like the rent study committee is really focused on this home rule petition stuff. We're going to be looking into other potential policies that the city can pursue to protect renters directly. But I don't want that to like step on the toes of the work that this group is doing or wants to do in the near future. So I just, I don't think that this conversation needs to be tied up right now. I just
Yeah.
want to like put that on everyone's mind, and like I think it can be an ongoing conversation.
Yeah, no, I think, and we have yes, I think that's a good idea. And we can talk, the partnership folks could talk about that more at our next meeting. Cause I don't think we should be stepping on it. I think we should decide who's doing what thing, and we can support each other. Partnership members could come to our listening sessions that Carolyn and I have been talking about.
Gonna be great.
But yeah, certainly don't want to duplicate efforts, because that seems like we all have too much to do without doing double. So same with the tenants union.
Yeah,
like,
one of the reasons that we had this joint committee, I think, was because we wanted to hear from Kevin some of the ideas that he had with respect to, you were talking about some of the low hanging fruit that we could do. And I'm just curious, as having seen the summary of the zoning changes that have been recommended, is that consistent with some of the things that you were thinking about? Are there other things that we I'm on both committees, but on the Fair Housing Partnership, that we have not addressed that you think would be, did we miss something that you were thinking about?
So I think these are the, like I said, I think trying to just make the most impactful ones forward. I mean, 8 community calendar, number of buildings, but the other thing that I think is kind of high priority is worth trying to discuss is, and I bet you we won't have had houses all over, it's cleaning up the regulations. It's like with the state. I think that there's things that I don't quite understand in them. But I think we'll have houses all over that already. I'm trying to clean some of that language up, because the way they read, I think some parts are much better than the state's regs and other parts are kind of on conflict. But it's like David was got to enforce them, the building inspector, in a weird spot, because it's like, well, you can't really cherry pick from one or the other. And then if you pick one, neither is great. It's just one thing we're working with now that I think David and I worked out a path. Just for example, we're trying to build a duplex with an ADU. The way our regs, if you're trying to go for the 900 square foot, our regs are reading, you have to personally occupy the duplex before you can even get a certificate of occupancy for the ADU. That was more of a, the semantics of it, where I think the intention is we're going to add units. You want to be able to build an ADU, we'll build it all at once. And
That's not just if you're a first time, because I know that restriction is in place for like first time home buyers. If they buy a multi, you have to live in it for a year. It's an insurance thing.
this is more than the zoning reg.
Yeah.
Yes, no, I know, but I was just making sure that wasn't like specific to first time. Wow, that does seem
If
kind
you're going
of.
to put a third unit on a duplex, you have to live in one of the units, which the state then preempted with the Affordable Homes Act. They said that that's illegal to do.
Yeah.
It's the Easthampton reg piece that lets you build the 900 square foot essentially by right. So it's like, if you're trying to hop on one or the other, they conflict. And unless you're going to take in the best of both worlds and make something that works. Otherwise, it has to be essentially owner occupied, which I know isn't happening on many of the ADUs I've seen gone up around here, which is fine. And like I said, I think the fact that new construction, you should be able to build that at the same time. saying that you now need to occupy it and then work that out through financing and everything, and then start construction on your ADU, I think is a bit of a problem, especially if you're actually a homeowner. I mean, it's one thing to be a developer and run into that issue. You can probably tackle that hurdle, but if you're doing a first time, you're getting a construction loan for your house and you're trying to put your elderly family member or child in the back, well, you just doubled your construction time for really no good reason, I don't think.
And Johanna or Allison might correct me, but like last I heard, there is an effort right now to like clean up those.
I think so.
That. And like
You'll talk about that with Dylan when you meet with him.
yeah. So yeah, that's coming down the pike. And that's also one of the other reasons why I need to step off the housing project, because there's too many ordinance things happening. But I think that the ADUs are something that we should be paying really close attention to, just because I think, like we mentioned, we don't have a lot of open space to be building new units. And like, this is an opportunity to get bonus units and infill. And I also think like it addresses some of the housing market dynamics. It also addresses some of the aging dynamics, like you mentioned, intergenerational living. If people can live in the same home or build an ADU that's accessible, then they can move into and rent out their house so they can stay in the community. Like, those are the kind of things that we really want to encourage. So I definitely want to make sure that that ordinance is written in a way that's.
Yeah, and I think it's murky on multifamily as well. Now, if you have an 8-unit in multifamily that you own as an investment property, it seems a little murky as to whether you could put an ADU on that property, even if it fits zoning wise and everything else. It seems unclear if that can be done, and that would open up quite a few units as well if that can be done.
Or if you could do 8, 1 for each unit.
That'd be nice.
Let everybody bring their parents home.
All right. Well, I mean, I feel like this was a really great discussion. I appreciate the ideas and the input, and this can be an ongoing discussion. Like we said, it's going to be probably another 1.5 years, of just discussions with planning board to get these things moved forward. So I would welcome the continued input and interest in this. Does anyone else have anything? We can't talk about anything substantive that's not on the agenda, but if anyone has anything they want to add to what we've talked about.
I just think we should keep the lines of communication open and maybe have some sort of shared Trello board or Google Drive or choose a service where we keep track of our ongoing projects and, and like who's tackling what pieces, as we were talking about a few minutes ago.
Can I ask this it's in your title, affordable and fair housing, but you have a little bit more of a mission, a longer statement of purpose, or?
I think that we mostly serve to ensure that the city is doing things that are in line with our core beliefs, which is that housing should be affordable and fair across all levels.
Yeah, I mean, I can't quote the mission exactly, but it's something to do with supporting and preserving affordable housing in the city of Easthampton. So it's really focused on the supply side and like protecting the subsidized capital A affordable units that we already have.
You can go to the Easthampton website and they have a list and description of all of the different all the different partnerships and commissions and whatnot. Let's see what the description is. That probably hasn't changed in a lot of years, but evolved over time. But
yeah, Jackie.
I'll just add that we're officially an advisory committee to the mayor. We don't have any power on our own, but we do get to weigh in on things like when someone puts in a grant application, we'll write a letter of support. If someone's going to the CPA committee to ask for money for an affordable housing project, we will go write a letter of support and go and support that project. But essentially what we do is try to stay on top of all the things that are happening to support and maintain affordable housing in the city, and make recommendations. But that's really we don't have any regulatory authority other than that. So at all, if that helps.
That's reporting to the mayor, and rent study is reporting to the city council.
Yes. Yeah. I'll also say, I think I'll just flag this, and a lot of you already know that this is happening, but the Housing Crisis Task Force resolution is being discussed at Rules Committee on Wednesday, March 11th. And that, I think, sort of getting at what you were saying, keeping lines of communication open, the main goal of it is, so it sort of creates this task force, which is like the chair of the Housing Partnership, the chair of the Rent Study Committee,
Oh, right.
planning,
Mhm.
and
Meeting of the minds.
yeah, meeting of the minds. It's not actually meant to like have people meet regularly, but it's much more of a policy change where anything that's housing related coming across the mayor's desk or planning or the housing partnership or whatever, we sort of send it to an email
Mhm.
like housing crisis at easthamptonma.gov, and then that automatically forwards to all the people. So it just helps keep everyone in the loop of what's going on, what public hearings are happening, what the tenants union's up to, that kind of thing. So hopefully that will pass through. I think the mayor was pretty receptive to the idea. So
I know some people were like, wait, I thought they were voting on it. What is this?
yeah,
And I said, don't worry, it's just procedural.
yeah, it's one of those things where we really hoped it would be voted, but the second any counselor asks a question, we have to send it to
It's
committee.
not that they oppose,
Yeah.
they just, there's procedure involved. So, yeah.
But that should be exciting, and I'm looking forward to hopefully that makes it a little bit easier for us to keep in touch and keep track of what we're doing. Yeah. But if no one else has anything else, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So,
Do I have a second?
Second?
All right, I have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you, guys.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.